It's actually some of the younger, newer bands from both the East and the West Coast of Canada that really made me think like, wow, I really like, I think that this is possible. Like we could do this, right?
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Angelo from Raider. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me, Keith.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
thanks for being here. Super pleased to meet you. I have been jamming out Trial by Chaos, the brand new album. As we record this, it's coming out this week. This interview will run and the album will already be out already by the time this runs. But in the meantime, let's unpack everything about the band and the album in a second. I hope you're well. I hope the band is well. We were just saying as we went to go record, this has been a rough weekend. If you're a metalhead, we just had the terrible tragedy at the Morbid Angel show. It's a miracle more people weren't hurt. I am brutally sad for everybody that lost their lives. It's probably going to be a few more people we're going to find out about ultimately because they pulled a lot of people out of there that were injured. And, it's everybody's fear, right? You feel, I said this in my little news piece, like as metalheads, we feel safe. Bands feel safe on tour. Like nothing can hurt me. I'm on tour. But obviously, nature gives no fucks. So it just doesn't care. And I know people who were at other shows in Chicago this weekend, and they were like, yeah, the weather's crazy here. I don't know what's going on, why they haven't canceled the show. So, just my heart goes out to everybody involved, all the bands. I think Crypto lost their RV, just crazy. And, life is very fragile. I hate to get all sensitive at the start of this interview about this brutal metal album, but we're not meant forever. So I hope everybody's good. I hope you're good. It's tough out there.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, we we had a few friends that were in attendance as well, and thankfully they were some of the lucky ones who were able to make it out unscathed. So we're grateful for that.
Right on. And I got to give respect to Morbid Angel. They've been amplifying all the messages of the families and the GoFundMe's and stuff. They have their own nightmare to contend with that this happened to them, and they are putting equal amounts of energy out in there. So, death metal people are not just grim and brutal and sick. They actually care. So that's nice. But Raider, man, let's learn about Raider. You guys are from Waterloo, Ontario, east coast of Canada. For those who do not know, Canada is vast and wide. It's not just like 3-4 cities. It's a huge country, coast to coast, the biggest, as big as America. Maybe not as many people, but lots of cities. So let's hear about if this was a comic book and we're going to flip open page 1 of the Raider origin story issue. What is comic book story number 1 about Raider?
So I would have to say that the band really started with Gabriel, who's our principal guitarist and songwriter. He was starting to come out to shows in the Waterloo region. Him and I both actually grew up in the GTA closer to Toronto. But I ended up coming out here to study, and he started coming out here to see shows because Kitchener, Waterloo, the Twin Cities out here, started to have the development of quite the metal scene. Quite a few bands were starting to pick up in the area, and we, I guess, sort of flocked to it as an opportunity to see if we could find our people so that we could get something going. Right, you're always on the lookout, right, for musicians who have a similar vision, and so one day at a show back in late 2017 or something like that, early 2018, I guess it was late 2017. Yeah, we were at the same show, and a mutual friend of ours, Kyle Adisi from Invicta, who you might have also heard of, they're from around here. He introduced Gabe and I, and Gabe was looking for a vocalist at the time, right? So he introduced us, and then we ended up just really hitting it off. We had the same sense of humor, same kind of vision around musically what we wanted to do. Him being principal songwriter, focusing on writing the riffs and the drums, and myself being the vocalist and lyricist and contributing that part of things. So we immediately hit it off, and we're able to find some other members. The two of us have kind of been like the main members of the band from the inception, so to speak, and are the main drivers of the songwriting and the lyricism as well. So we now have developed a lineup over the years that's been a little bit more consistent now, after having a couple of lineup changes along the way, which is normal, right? As you're developing as a band, right, it's important to be honest about sharing the same vision and making sure you're all on the same page about the vision for what the band's going to do, for what direction you want to go in, sonically, but also, right, ambition wise, right, like where you want to get to. So we had a couple changes along the way, and we got to play a lot of amazing shows with some of our close friends who, we're always supportive no matter what the circumstance was. And now we're at a spot where we have a pretty consistent lineup. We're just at a point where we're just short a drummer full time. So it's two guitarists, myself, and our now full time bassist Chip. So we're still grateful to have our good friend Greg, who will be filling in on drums for us live in the near future here. And by the time this airs, we're actually already going to be on the road. So this is a little bit of a look to the future here. Hopefully that's the case, right? That's the game plan here. We're looking to be on the road by the time this will roll around later in the month of April. And so that's pretty much the history of it. Yeah, we just kind of met, hit it off, started writing songs together. We felt out like what our sound was going to be and realized like how we kind of meshed together, right? My vocal style with Gabe's songwriting style, and we were able to put together what you hear today. And I would say that Trial by Chaos, we do have our EP, which we released back in early 2018, which was our first release when we really kind of incepted. And then we have our first full-length record, Guardian of the Fire, which we released in March of 2020, just about 2 years to the day later. And both of them, we're really proud of what we did, and I kind of see them as our sandbox, of forging this sound. But Trial by Chaos, in all honesty, is I think our first really strong release that is representative of what our original vision of the band was supposed to be.
Killer. I love to hear it. Thanks for unpacking all that for us. And Victor, I just actually discovered them. They're on tour with Heathen and fellow Canadians Arrival of Autumn right now. And so it's like the 6 degrees of Kyleration right now. That's great. We covered them in New York. That was fantastic. And I'm super interested in them. So that's awesome. Canada, especially Eastern Canada, has such a rich history of extreme metal, right? Quebec and Montreal in particular. I had been a frequent visitor about 10 years ago. I used to just travel to Canada for shows. I was on the East Coast. It was easy to go from Boston to Quebec or Boston to Montreal for a big show or a festival. Who are some of the bands that, if they were from your home country, who are some of your countrymen that inspired you to make the music you make as a metal vocalist?
That's a tough one. I would have to say that, I think a lot of people, they see us as being like super thrash guys, right? I think there's definitely a thrash element to our music. I think we've kind of moved a little bit away from like the traditional sort of thrash sound. So a lot of people are going to expect to hear things like Razor and Sacrifice, right? But to be honest, maybe for Gabe, but for me, definitely not the case. I don't really have like too many Canadian artists that really stick out for me from like the old school kind of movement, right? That really stuck with me and that really kind of made me, want to move in this direction and to do this for real. It's actually some of the newer bands. It's actually some of the younger, newer bands from both the East and the West Coast of Canada that really made me think like, wow, I really I think that this is possible. Like we could do this, right? My old school inspirations that kind of brought me to the forefront were pretty mainstream, to be honest with you, man. Like, I was growing up, I was listening to Arch Enemy, Amon Amarth, and all the big dogs, right? Behemoth, everything like that. And of course, old school stuff as well. But, like Demolition Hammer and whatnot, Cannibal and everything like that. But like I was saying, a lot of the newer bands, from that were just kind of like the generation before us, they're the ones who I saw coming up and kind of breaking that Canadian luck spell of not being able to break out into Europe and to the US. And that was very inspiring for me, particularly bands like from the East Coast, like from the West Coast, like Unleash the Archers. Unleash the Archers, fantastic band from the East Coast. From the West Coast. I totally fell in love with them early on, and when I was discovering kind of like the Canadian, like smaller scene, so to speak. And also just locally from Toronto, seeing Skullfist kind of break out and break into the European scene with their traditional sound as well, and seeing them really garner a lot of success. Eventually, we got to play with them actually in Quebec City, not too long before, just shortly before the pandemic. So that was a real treat to kind of go from having listened to them and seeing them around and breaking out and like going to play in other places, and then being able to eventually play with them as well.
Awesome. I'm an old guy, so I love sacrifice. And but at the same time, I wouldn't typify you guys as either. I feel like it's an amalgam of sounds, right? It's not just thrash, or it's just like thrash with an aggressive vocal. I feel like it's you guys have pulled in a lot of different influences and you put them out your own way, which is what makes the band stand out, I think. Yeah, I'm super pumped. I can't wait to hear people hear this record and like get their reactions. I'm sure you feel the same. Very exciting week of release. And what I thought we would do is just do a little track by track run through with you, and you can share anything you feel like sharing about each song. Could be the meaning, could be anything about the recording, could be the vocals or the music, whatever you want to talk about. I will drop the track and you can respond. So
Hit me.
we'll go track by track for Trial by Chaos, and the first track is the title track. It's usually what the case you the first track or the last track. And
Boom. Trial by Chaos title track, obviously a play on the turn of phrase, right? Trial by fire. It was just something that came to me, you know. I'm hugely influenced by more like literature and writing and hip hop specifically. And in terms of my lyricism and like it just kind of it dawned on me to make this turn of phrase and to change it a little bit to kind of fit with you know, how things have been going, right? It was just kind of my take on, you know, I guess facing the adversity of life in the world, and facing your own, you know, your own, I guess, brand of chaos that each person is up against in your own way, and being resolute in that, and being triumphant in the end. That's really what it's about.
I dig it. Rite of Conquest is next.
Rite of Conquest. Rite of Conquest is kind of like a bit of a tongue-in-cheek sort of commentary on colonialism. I think so. The song really is centered around this idea that in the, you know, not so distant human future, we're going to be looking for other worlds to inhabit, and that our lust for conquest and bloodshed and desire to conquer other, you know, civilizations is not going to end on Earth. You know, we're going to have to go somewhere else. And, you know, I feel terrible for the civilizations that may exist out there in the universe, because once humanity gets that ability to go anywhere, man, like that's going to be a big problem for them. So yeah, just a commentary on that, and kind of like how humanity has this sick sort of compulsion for colonizing, and just sort of, you know, spreading wherever they can by means of violence.
Well said. This is the second interview today where we talked about aliens and alien invasions and the potential for space travel, like distant multi-galaxy space travel. We have no shot. That's my personal take. It's not scientifically based. We're gonna lose that war on day one. They're gonna show up here one day and they're not gonna be nice. We're gonna be like, oh, you guys who've been shitting on the whole planet and everywhere else, we got you. You're done in a day. We're done.
So that's interesting that you say that, because with Rite of Conquest, you know, and I hope I'm not taking us over time here, by the way. I hope that we're good for time. Okay, cool.
Good,
The thing with Rite of Conquest was that this was sort of an inversion of this vision, right? Because I think we've been so obsessed with this idea that, you know, we're the ones who are going to be subjected to the alien invasion, right? We are the ones who are going to be subjected to you know, the reverse colonization, right? Where an alien species is going to come, land, take over, subjugate us, and we're going to be the ones in chains. But I honestly think that, like, you know, likely we would be the ones, maybe, right? Like, this sort of turned it on its head and made us think, you know, look at how we behave here on Earth with each other, right? Like, likely that would be the path that we take if we were to discover an alien civilization. So it was just kind of a comment on that, right? More a
that's
comment on what's going on here, right? So
that's totally fair. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so maybe someday it'll happen. I don't know. My hopes are low for our exceptional American exceptionalism, which we suffer from here down south of you. It's the same thing with Earth exceptionalism. It would be the same road to me, but that's just me. I'm negative Nancy. That's what I do. New Dominion is the third track.
yeah, New Dominion. So New Dominion is kind of another sort of dark commentary, a dark dystopian commentary rather, on a potential future that we might face, right? If you look at the lyrics, right, I talk a bit about like technology, and I talk a bit about the potential for us to kind of, not necessarily like I'm not one of these typical guys who has this bizarre fear of AI or anything like that, but just more so the effect of technology today, right? Like just the idea that we're just basically glued to our screens and basically sucked into, you know, these cycles of frying our dopamine receptors just over and over again, consuming content, consuming content. We're just so hungry for it. And we're constantly in this cycle of consumption. And I feel like maybe it's, a biased opinion, right? But I feel like we're starting to see the effects of that on kind of like the human experience, human creativity. And I just wonder if if we're bracing for what I call a state of the art dark age in that song, right? Where, we're going to be in this future where everything is super high tech. We have all this incredible technology, right? But maybe we're not using it to, its full potential, right? And instead, we're just kind of using it to kind of be like the rat in the cage, just pressing the orgasm button over and over again, right? As opposed to using it for like things like exploration or things like trying to understand the world a little bit better.
The orgasm button. Somebody Pornhub, somebody change your name to the orgasm button right now, or I make my own website and forget about Ghost Cult and probably make a lot more money, to be honest with you. The fourth track, which I'm quite fond of, is Fearless.
Fearless is a one of the other sort of mantras that I have inserted into the record. Sonically, just pummeling, right? Like another pummeler. And that's really like I think I'm talking a little bit about the lyrics too much here, but like and like the theme of the songs, but sonically we really wanted Fearless to be super pulverizing, but also have that like hook in it as well, right? Which I think it's really catchy, and it's one of the catchiest songs. But again, another mantra, just like Trial by Chaos, about facing the world with fortitude, right, and not letting all of this insanity just kind of bowl us over, right, into giving in, right, giving in to all of the terrible things that we have to face up in life, right? We live in one of the most privileged times in human history, right? In terms of what we have access to, our resources, our capabilities, our life expectancy, everything in every aspect, right? But it doesn't change the fact that it's still extremely difficult, right? Life is extremely difficult, and it's not going to get easier for a lot of people. And so I have no problem just saying that that's a song where I like writing songs that pump people up, man. I want people to feel pumped up. I want people to feel supported. I want people to feel like, they have someone screaming in their corner ready for them, pumping them up to like face life,
Angelo will be your hype man. He's volunteering, everybody. Awesome. I love it. No notes. Labyrinth is the next track.
Labyrinth, yeah. So Labyrinth was definitely more of a meditation on the state of affairs with access to information in the world. So it almost feels like everyone suddenly believes that they're an expert in everything today, just because of the readily accessible nature of a lot of information in the world. And so it's just kind of another dystopian meditation, just like a few of the other songs that I have there, on not necessarily believing everything that you hear, and not necessarily believing that you know everything about everything, and maybe just taking a closer look at like how you consume information, right? Or what direction you like to go in when you consume information. Because yeah, like we said, we had a huge exercise in this, all right, over the past couple of years. So yeah, just a meditation on that for sure.
Nice. I think we failed that test. Just saying, just saying. We're just going a little dark today. We're Breaking Bad a little bit, Angelo. Arc of Empiria. I hope I said that correctly.
Empiria, yeah, Arc of Empiria.
There you go.
Yeah, so this collection of 8 songs was really inspired by, the last like 4 or 5 years, particularly. I would say a couple of the mantra songs I had lyrics for quite a while ago. Arc of Empiria is more of is one that I wrote even like before the last like 4 years, but like the main like subject matter of it, but more being about the potential dystopian future of all of us kind of being sucked into like a hive mind, right? And not necessarily being able to think for ourselves. It was just kind of like a horror movie sort of idea, right? Like there's nothing really special about it. I think that the dystopian future ones, should be taken with a grain of salt, the same way that a lot of like, a lot of bands will talk about how their songs are about, like, they're just stories, right? Like, it's a story, right? It's not necessarily to be taken with, like I don't think that that's going to be possible, you know. I think a lot of people are in like a panic fervor about, like, you know, neural technology and things like that, right? I'm not one of them. I don't think so. Same with AI, right? I'm not in a panic fervor about either of these things, but and yet I write songs about them and the like dystopian horrors of the, you know, their potential futures. So yeah, it's basically about that. And more a comment on just, you know, no matter what kind of sub cult that exists in your circle, tries to drag you into their way of thinking, right? No matter what it is, right? Whatever side it's on of whatever, you know, subject matter, not to just get totally sucked into that. You know what I mean? Like, try and take a step back, right? Think about things, you know, meditate on them. Take some time to think about other kind of subcults and like what they believe about certain things and whatnot, right? So yeah, it's more a meditation on that than anything.
I dig it. Let's see if I don't butcher this next tongue twister. Juggernaut cerebrivore.
Juggernaut cerebrivore. Yeah, so just
Close
like
enough.
carnivore, omnivore, cerebrivore, right?
I like it. I like it. Let's hear it.
Yeah,
What's it about?
that's a totally made up word, so you can't really, you know, you have the right to butcher it, right? It's
Mm.
literally a made up word. But again, a play on the, like, the terminology around, like, you know, what we eat, right? Like omnivore, carnivore, cerebrivore being like mind eater, right? So juggernaut cerebrivore, again, another sort of take on how we kind of get sucked into very specific little echo chamber worlds that we, you know, believe are the end all be all of philosophy or science or whatnot, right? Um and often these are, you know, little sort of like side subculture, you know, underground hustles that have lots of grifting associated with them. I also talk a little bit in that song about, you know, just being surrendered to any like sort of intellectual master, right? You know, and I guess being, yeah, just being like, you know, told what way things should be. So yeah, that's all I have on that. I don't really know what else to say about
That's
it.
all good. I'm glad you did. By the way, like, don't apologize. When you interview the singer, you get talks about lyrics and themes and stories and stuff. So that's what I wanted. So no worries.
Yeah, for sure, for
And
sure.
then the final track to close out the album is the much simpler titled "Devour the Darkness."
Yeah, Devour the Darkness. Yeah, that's got some old ass lyrics in it, man. I wrote those probably, you know, some of those lyrics are from years and years ago. Just from writing that I had, you know, created years and years ago, that I finally felt I found the right spot for them to live, in this track particularly. You know, definitely one of our darker, moodier, more progressive tracks that has kind of a very cool development. And I honestly felt that the track was kind of like a journey into the underworld. You know what I mean? It feels like kind of like the guitar and the drums and the way that it goes. It just takes you to each circle of hell. Each verse after the chorus takes you to like another circle of hell. You know, so I was um I was thinking that I wanted to end the record lyrically on another mantra of endurance, right? Another mantra of overcoming and persevering, which is again like a huge theme of the record, right? Trial by chaos. And so this is probably the most personal song for me on the record. Again, just about overcoming every obstacle in your life and getting through and finding a way to achieve what your dreams are, to achieve what your goals are.
Nice. I love all this positivity, all this PMA, this punk rock positivity that's coming through on this. I now appreciate the album even more than I already did, so I'm really excited. I have just a last couple of questions for you. I failed to mention I love this artwork on this album, so I wanted to ask you about the artwork and if it had any significance to either the title track or the whole album in general.
Absolutely, yeah. So the artist who did this work, Mitchell Nolte from Down Under in Australia, huge fan of his work. I had seen his work around, and I immediately wanted to see if he'd be available to work with us. And by a stroke of luck, he was. Our collaboration was essentially I gave him the lyrics. And I told him a bit about the record. I gave him our previous artworks so that he, you know, wouldn't get anything too close to it or something like that. That might, you know, not, or that would be thematically like, you know, too overlapping or whatever. And I just said, like, you know, make a painting about it, you know. And that's what he did. yeah, like we had a little bit of a brief discussion about like, the themes of the record. And again, I gave him the lyrics and that's what he came up with. I gave him the option of keeping the guy, right? Like the guy has been on the first two releases, right? And we didn't know if he was gonna make it to the next release, but I gave him the option. I said, hey, if you feel like the guy belongs, you put the guy in, right? And he decided to go with it. And then we got this piece and we were just like, yep, that's good. It looks really sweet. So
Right on. The guy, is that the official name of the mascot? The guy?
that's pretty funny. We can call him that if we want. He has no name, right? He's got no
Uh,
official name, so we can call him the guy.
Very cool. Bands with mascots. Usually it's a built-in good thing for your merch and your marketing and your albums, and it ties everything together. It makes people recognize your band. So very, very cool. And for a last question, not about the album, but just I love to end with a wild card question. Let's say it's dinner at Angelo's house, and Angelo can invite any three people, living, dead, famous, not famous, to dinner. Who would you invite to dinner, and what would you serve?
Oh, damn, that is super tough. Oh man. See, I'm the type of person where when I get like a wild card question like this, I'm gonna give you some answer. I'm gonna tell you some three names, and then later I'm just gonna be like rolling over in bed, thinking to myself, like, damn it, I should have picked,
That's the
Oh,
purpose of the question. So don't worry about it. There's no right or wrong answer. It's only right at this moment.
let me give me a second here because I'm a little bit slow on the uptake, so I'm gonna have to like turn my brain to people mode and like start thinking of like all of my historical figures. Like who I want to bring this. I would say number one would be Aesop Rock. He's a rapper from Portland, absolute lyrical genius, and I have just been fascinated with him for the duration of like my existence. So would love to be able to sit with him and just talk about writing and lyrics and get to know a bit about like him and his process and stuff like that. I'm a huge fan. Oh, that's a super tough question. I got to pick at least like one cool historical guy, right? So like, let's go with if we're gonna go with like an old historical guy, I would say I would go with Leonardo da Vinci. Gonna go with Leonardo da Vinci, just like a well-known, Renaissance man, historical figure who I definitely would want to hook up with just to learn a bit about medieval Italy. Just being of Italian descent myself, right, and having a real fascination with the culture and the history. Would love to sit down with him and just kind of chat about everything Italy. And then the third one, awesome. I got to pick a third one, dude. You're killing me here.
I said three. I could have made it four. I tried to take it easy on you.
Oh man, hold on. Let me think for a second here. I can't even think of one. I'm so bad with these types of questions, man.
That's okay. Who would be a good compliment to those? So Aesop and Da Vinci. Who's a good third in there? Who would like be a good contrarian to throw in there with the two of them?
A third contrarian? Are they contrarians?
I don't know. No, I'm saying maybe somebody else to counterman the two of them, like these big creative forces, right?
Let me think here for a second.
Who's very droll, right? Like Aesop's like personality is like a rainbow. He's incredible. And Da Vinci is probably like, I don't know much about him, but just judging by the output of stuff, he was probably nuts. Right?
Yeah, he's probably like a hard ass old nutcase.
He's seeing in 3D while we're seeing in black and white like a dog. Nothing personal. I love dogs, but I'm just saying, we're seeing like wavy black and white lines, and Da Vinci sees in code, right? So who would be a good third? Somebody in music, maybe? I'll help coach you. Sports heroes, music, vocal heroes, no politicians, probably not.
No, to be honest, I don't have an interest in meeting like any vocal. Like I don't really fanboy too much on that. I fanboy more on like writing and like art and content more than like.
Who's your favorite writer of all time that's not a musician?
Just literature. That's a tough one. You know what? I have it. Okay. You know what? I have it. Anne Rice.
Okay.
Anne Rice gets so much shit for being like a pulp fiction, pulp horror writer, akin to like Stephen King. I challenge anyone who calls Anne Rice pulp fiction. I challenge anyone to actually read her books, read the Vampire Chronicles, read that content, read like, Servant to the Bones or any of her other books and tell me that she is pulp fiction. She is one of the most talented writers. And unfortunately, she passed away last year. And I actually had like a brief correspondence with her over email when I was a teenager because I was such a huge fan of her writing. And I wanted to learn a bit more about her process. And we had and I couldn't believe that she responded to me. She responded to my email. Like Anne Rice responded to my email. I was blown away. I was like a teenager. Right? I had no idea. And yeah, totally underrated author in terms of reputation. Huge bestseller, right? But reputation gets so much shit for being pulp. I think that she has written classic literature, amazing historical fiction, and I'm a huge fan. I would love to have the chance to meet Anne Rice.
There you go. That's a great trio right there. See, to me,
Oh.
you get through it, you cut through it, and you get to your three guests. So that sounds awesome. What would you just quickly? What would you serve them? What kind of meal would you make or
Oh,
have brought in for
I,
them?
I'd have to make them. I'd have to make them something classic. I have to make them one of my nonno's dishes. I'd have to either make them some homemade pizza, or I'd have to make them like pasta with tzatziki and rapini, man. Like just a classic, simple something that I'm good at making. Like that was handed down from my nonno for sure.
Nice, and I bet she says gravy and not sauce for sure. It's authentic.
No, man. That's an Italian American thing, actually,
Okay,
man.
maybe.
Up
Yeah.
here, you guys call what you guys, I believe you guys call rapini broccoli rabbia,
Okay.
right? Maybe
Rob.
right down there. Yeah.
Nice. That sounds delicious, actually. I'll be right over. All right.
Boom, you're in.
Boom. I'm the fourth. Angelo from Raider, man. Super nice to meet you. Super good hearing all about the band. And I'm so excited for you and this record coming out. Thanks so much for hanging out with Ghost Cult. I hope I see you on the road when you get down to America or I get up there for a festival or a show. Thanks for hanging
Keith,
out.
you will be seeing us very soon, man. We're going to hit the road in just a couple of weeks, and we will be hitting San Francisco probably before this interview even airs. So
No kidding.
keep
Well,
an eye out.
thanks, man. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, man. Take it easy.